Welcome all to August 3rd Wilton Town Board meeting. I'd like to start with a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, we lost another Wilton legend, Jeannie Walters. She was our town historian forever. She did a lot of good for this town, mainly preserving our history, so I wish everybody would take a moment of silence for her. Thank you all. Roll call.
Supervisor Lant.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor McEachran.
Here.
Councilman Bogartis. Absent. Councilwoman Colligan. Here. Councilman O'Connor.
Here.
Councilman O'Connor, we talked today. I'd like to say a few things, maybe put a lot of people's minds at ease.
Yeah, I'd ask the supervisor if I could have a few minutes to discuss an issue that I'm going to guess a lot of you are here to discuss with us, and that is the issue of solar arrays, solar farms. And as the supervisor said, we had conversations prior to the meeting. And just to give everybody background who may not be as familiar with it as others, back in 2017, there were new regulations established regarding solar arrays. And at that time, what are called Tier 3 solar arrays, which are the larger ones that have multiple panels over several acres. They were permitted in the commercial zones in town, the industrial zones in town, and also permitted in the RB1, R2, and R3 residential areas. And when the town started to become inundated with applications for these, we decided to place a moratorium on them while we could study it longer. This is all new for us. You know, a solar array's never been built, opened, active anywhere in the town. And so we put the moratorium in place so that we could study it more thoroughly, and have continued to do so up until today, as a matter of fact. And so earlier, some changes to the ordinance were drafted for consideration that included making the minimum distance between any residential property and a solar array 500 feet instead of 100 feet as it was in the ordinance, and also some other restrictions on where they could go. One of the biggest concerns I had that I expressed a few months ago at a town board meeting is the environmental impacts, especially the impacts of clearing forest land, and the impact on wildlife, the impact on the ability of the trees, which are carbon dioxide sponges, not having them available to do the work to help the atmosphere that they're supposed to do. Prior to the moratorium, there were 3 solar array projects approved, and they were approved according to what the code was in the town at that time. But we still don't have any experience with these projects, how they're installed, how they operate, what all the impacts might be in a town like ours. And although we can't change the code tonight, the moratorium is still in place until next month. And one of the recommendations that we've talked about is, in addition to the other safeguards that were put in this draft, was to also remove the RB1, R2, and R3 zones from eligibility or consideration for solar arrays. And like I said before, we're novices at this, and we admit it. We don't have any expertise in this. We've done a lot of reading about it and studying about it, especially Councilwoman Culligan and I, over several months. And so, you know, we think the prudent thing to do is to disallow these types of large solar farms arrays in the RB1, R2, and R3 zones. Now, before the town board can take any action. We're required by law to have a public hearing. Is that right, council?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we have to have a public hearing scheduled and give appropriate notice in advance of that meeting to make any changes. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for 7 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th?
7th.
7th? Thank you. On Thursday, September 7th, which is the date of our next town board meeting and also the month that the moratorium would expire. So I'd like to make that motion.
Your second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
What's that? Anybody signed up to speak?
That
Yes.
still would like to speak.
Huh?
That still would like to speak.
And by the way, anybody who's here who wants to come to the public hearing next month, please do so, because that's when the formal action would be taken.
You know, I think back then when that was done, I think we were in impression and thought it would be for people's homes on the roofs or in the yard. I don't think we believed it was going to be as big as it turned out to be.
After speaking with the last supervisor, that's why he was under the same impression. So it was all like, it was supposed to be on rooftops. How it got to the fields, or it's our fault, but.
Right.
We have Lee Trombley, 55 Damascus Drive.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Lee Trombley. I used to be a reporter. I wrote under the name Lee Hornbeck, and so it's crazy to be here to speak as a resident and a civilian now. I live at 55 Damascus Drive. We've lived here since 2012, my husband Josh and I. We have two sons, Rushton and Devlin, who are 13 and 11. Not here to talk about solar arrays. I'm here because there is some ambition in the town. There's some interest in having more trails and more ways to get around more safely as a pedestrian and cyclist. And Damascus Drive, as you may know, is in the Furlong Hills development. I love my neighbors, I love living there, I love living in Wilton, but it is somewhat of an island. It is very difficult for my children or adult or child to get out of that neighborhood or any of its neighboring neighborhoods safely without being worried about the traffic on Traver, on Northern Pines. We have Gavin Park right there, which is a wonderful resource, and we've used all of my kids' lives that we've lived here, and yet there's no real safe way for them to get there on their bicycles. It's very hard to retroactively build trails. I know that. They really should be built when the subdivision is built, so that the developer is required to have connectivity between those neighborhoods. That's not really what we have in Wilton, but it still can be done.
We have that.
The first, excuse me?
We have that
Done how?
during development.
Yes, I know, but in my neighborhood, which I think was perhaps built before those requirements were in place, we still would like to have that connectivity so that we can move about. There's thousands of people between those neighborhoods that have no way out that is safe. So doing it retroactively is possible. If you look at the southwestern part of Saratoga Springs, it took a lot of years, it took a lot of work, but you can now get from Geyser Crest, where I lived when I was first married, all the way into town. So I'm just here to encourage the town board to look at ways in which we could more safely have cyclists and pedestrians on our road. I hold my breath every time I see a runner or a walker or a cyclist, particularly on Northern Pines. Maple has a nice big shoulder, but it's also risky, and I think this is a value add for what is already a great place to live. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
By the way, if no one ever came across Lee's byline when she wrote for the Times Union, she is a superb reporter and writer.
Tom Case, 240 Loudon Road.
The biggest thing, I think, on this whole solar thing is people are getting the idea that you're either for it or you're against it. And it creates like an animosity between people. Nobody in this room, I don't think, is against solar farms. it's putting it in rural areas where you're going to destroy the tree canopy, which you guys try to preserve. You're going to destroy the ecosystem, wildlife, all that. And these things have a 20-year shelf life, 25, whatever. You can't come back 25 years later and restore the canopy. They just do not grow again in the wetlands. They're done. And the other things too is, unfortunately, all across the United States, this is going on. And you're coming to towns like ours, smaller towns, they don't know anything about this. But you have these big solar companies. And the reason why it's a great business right now, it's booming. And I'm not against anybody making a buck, it's just that they go in and find your loopholes in your town, and then they go out and they buy wetlands cheap, and that's kind of fallen into your R1, R2 zone, stuff like that. And lately, the big thing with these solar companies, what I've been researching is, they'll go in and they'll start a dozen projects, all in the in development stages, their own words. And then what they do is they bundle them and put them in a portfolio. They might sell 9 or 10 of them to a larger solar company. So now you're not even dealing with the original one that applied for the application. Bottom line is, I think you're making the right moves. You know, these solar farms are great in parking lots, top of buildings, you know, in fields. They're great because they need the sun. So why go into an area that you got to destroy to get the sun? It's just common sense tells you don't do that. And I think everybody in this room wouldn't be here tonight. This isn't even a meeting about the solar. It's just that this is directly in our backyards. It's not like, 10 miles down the road. It's in the backyards. And I'm not going to get into all the stuff about fire and noise and all that. We just don't want it. And I don't think anybody really does in the residential. So I think all of you should pat yourselves on the back for doing this. Because it's not easy. So
Appreciate that.
You have our backs, we're going to have your backs when you need it. And I think you're all very sincere about it, just, it's a mess, is what it is. And you got to deal with it, so. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
One point that you had made that I think is very important, that I didn't mention before, is in the draft...
Time's up.
If it's important, go.
In the fastest 3 minutes I ever saw. In the draft changes, there are financial incentives in there to use already developed properties, parking lots and the like.
Well, yeah,
So,
I'm sure you guys are, nobody's kicking solar companies out.
yeah.
We just want to put them in areas that make sense, just common sense.
Yep.
I've seen parking lots that they have solar panels, and it's great.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
cars parked underneath them
Parking,
and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't put them in the woods, that's all.
Yep.
Agreed.
Mike Bryce, 233 Loudon Road.
Easy. Easy.
I'm actually here to first commend you for making this motion. It's something that the local residents have been fighting hard for, as we all know. And I just want to remind everybody, we have had people say that some of these solar farms can't cause fires, some can, some are battery packs, some are electric. The bottom line is, if that little percentage happens and there is a fire in these rural areas, we don't have enough fire manpower to ever put them out. Never mind toxic fumes that they could possibly give off. So I really think that you guys are making a great decision by considering not putting this in the R2s, R1s, and residential areas. And I know a lot of people out here could not be happier. That being said, between now and the next meeting is actually a lot of things can still happen. So what I would ask the board is to consider is, at this particular moment, being that this is a possibility, I think any solar company that owns property in Wilton should not be allowed any permits to move forward further with any project that could be possibly for the solar farm. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request, because some companies could try to just bend the rules a little bit, or...
There's a moratorium, there's no permits to be issued.
Well, for any permits at all, for any kind of structure, unless it's possibly on a home, but not on any solar, where they could have a solar farm, where there might be site plans for a solar farm, where there might be, you know, anything to do with solar. I think we kind of need to just hold on. We have a meeting next month, let's stop it all. I think that's very important. Thank you very much.
Kate O'Leary, 319 Ruggles Road.
Hi there. Well, really, oops, sorry. The last two folks that talked really said a lot of the same things that I would have said. So I'll definitely be back next month. I guess maybe the only other thing is some of the pollution that it can cause in our waterways. We're right by the wildlife preserve. We're all on wells. So, you know, we're certainly concerned about our water. We know that sometimes those photovoltaic cells can break, and if they're not managed correctly, they can leak lead and cadmium into our soil and our waters. So that's maybe one other point, but
Thank you.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sean Brazo, 237 Loudon Road.
Thank you very much. I'm Sean Brazo. I'm the president of one of the solar companies you guys are talking about, Seaboard Solar. We have a pending proposal for a project off of Loudon Road, back behind the property that we just acquired. A couple of notes. One, we're a small family-run business based in Western Connecticut in a rural town, not that similar to this one. There are 10 people that work for the company. We've built a range of solar projects in the Northeast, including quite a number in upstate New York. I absolutely understand the concerns that residents have, in particular regarding safety. And typically there are safety concerns and view shed concerns that mostly get people upset. From a safety perspective, I know I delivered some packages of information to adjacent residents on Saturday and early this week. There were concerns about the fire in Jefferson County. As you probably know, that was a battery fire, not a solar farm fire. Solar panels today, unlike early solar panels, don't have any dangerous chemicals that can leak or seep into the groundwater or be burned and turn into toxic fumes. That is unfortunately just not accurate information today. And while it's a concern, there is third-party information that I'd be happy to make available to people to outline clearly that those are not risks. Siting is obviously a discussion. I'd much rather put a solar farm in a place that no one is going to be upset about. But you have to be able to interconnect them. And Wilton actually has almost no sites left for Tier 3 solar, full stop, on any commercial place. You can't just put them in a parking lot. You can't just put them in a commercial zone. You have to be able to interconnect them. The site in Loudon Road is I think, almost the last one available in Wilton. So banning solar in residential areas will effectively ban Tier 1 solar in town because it's just not possible to put them other places for practical reasons. And that's irrespective of incentives to do it, because if you can't interconnect to the lines, you just can't. I'm going to leave my information, with the town clerk. I encourage anyone, if they have questions, anyone in the town who would like to ask about how we do things, whether the project gets sold on. We, by the way, are landowners, and we hold the land long-term, so we are always here. We're not a fly-by-night, sell it and get out of town operation. We have land under management all through Massachusetts and upstate New York, and we'll continue to do so with this project, were we to be approved. Mostly I want to make sure that people know that they can ask questions. I'm happy to email, speak by phone, or meet over a cup of coffee with anyone who has any interest in understanding what our perspective is. And I appreciate appreciate your patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What's that? Everybody get a chance to read last month's minutes? You got any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the pending minutes.
Second.
No second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sure.
My name's Stephen Borden. I live at 238 Loudon Road, directly across from where the potential solar farm would be coming in. Of the many concerns that I have, I moved in there with my wife in, I think, 2015, and we've been blessed with 2 children, Vivian and John, aged 5 and 3. And I think the potential harm and risk that could cause not only myself and to my family is alarming. And if there's one thing I'll go to bat for, it's for my family. And with that being said, I consider this community part of my family as well. So I want to make that well known. And as far as the small town, or I'm sorry, the small family business, I think I read somewhere that it was profiting or it was making somewhere close to $15-18 million a year or something like that. It doesn't matter how small you are, if you have the resources to fight these battles, then you have them. And my understanding of government in general, and this is my first time ever speaking at anything similar to this or even anything like this, is that at the base of what government is made for, it's any policy or law or statute or whatever they pass, at the crux of it should be, it shouldn't even be considered if it doesn't help the population in which are governed. And I, for the life of me, cannot think of how this was going to help my family or my community in any way, shape, or form. With that being said, I'm against this, and like I said, if there's one thing that I'll fight for, and I think most people in the room would agree, it's for our families. And it hurts my heart to think that, potential side effects of whatever could occur with contamination in groundwater, which are well, or, air quality or soil quality or anything could have long-lasting effects on my children. I moved in with my wife in, like I said, 2015, and that was supposed to be our forever house. We wanted to live there forever, just grow and develop and, hopefully have grandkids someday and all those things. And I really think that this is kind of putting that in jeopardy with the risks that the town is taking in assembling this and potentially going forward with this. So I just wanted to make that known, and I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board. It looks like you put a lot of thought into this. My name is Bill Battaglia. I live on Ruggles Road, 2 houses away from the corner of Loudon and Ruggles. I just want to really ask everybody to be very careful and skeptical about whatever you read. There's a lot of interests on both sides. Fossil fuel companies and solar companies have a lot of economic interest. I've read a few things. I've been researching it. I've read a few things that I'm pretty certain were propaganda by one side or the other. So, there's a lot of money at stake here, and there's a lot of people and businesses that will put out fake news, basically, to sway you one way or the other. I would just ask everybody to be really careful what you believe and look into it, make sure it's really legit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a first and second on the minutes.
We did.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Heritage Society Scholarship, Harriet Finch. You want to speak or you want Ray to speak?
Hattie?
Oh, it's Hattie.
Hattie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I always get it wrong.
She can.
This is Hattie's idea. She's got the mic.
I'll use my cafeteria voice. I can't believe I'll need to use anything. I'm pretty loud. I don't live in Wilton, but I love Wilton. I think this is an incredible community. It's beautiful. It's historic. It has future. It's just an incredible, incredible place. I got interested in Wilton because I did volunteer work at the New York State Military Museum and then at Grant Cottage. And then I met Jeannie Waters. I don't know how many of you knew her personally, but she was absolutely inspirational about a love for this town. And I've been talking a little with Ray about a scholarship idea. We'd like to think about a scholarship in 3 school districts, Schuylerville, South Glens Falls, and Saratoga Springs. We'd like to give equal amounts to all 3 school seniors, a senior in each building, and we'd like to name it after 3 people. Donald Meyer, who was profoundly involved in the investment of the growth of education here. Jeannie Waters, and Lorraine Westcott. So we're thinking that a scholarship in a further study of history for a senior from each of those 3 schools is a great recognition of their effort and an incentive for further study of history. And at the same time, it gives us a chance to recognize 3 people from Wilton who made a huge difference for this community. Anything you can add?
That was pretty darn good. For those who may not be, relatively new to town and not familiar, there are 3 school districts that serve the town of Wilton: Schuylerville, Saratoga Springs, and South Glens Falls, and that's why Hattie had suggested, that we look at possibly establishing 3 different scholarships and honoring, 3 of the most significant people who ever set foot in this town. If the town board decided to go ahead, scholarships would not be awarded until the end of the coming school year, correct?
Correct.
So maybe it's something we can discuss when we talk about the 2024 budget?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Hattie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
DEC trail easements, Ryan?
Okay, DEC contacted me a while back. They stock the Snook Kill with fish, and they have some already existing fishing access easements across the town property at Northern Pines Road. They would like to extend the fishing access along the Snook Kill on town property that would be behind like Tom Sawyer Drive and portion of King Mills subdivision. Their access would be from Northern Pines Road for this. I did discuss with DEC, potential trail making opportunities, but it's a different department, and they couldn't commit to any trail making or funding or assistance with that. But also I said, well, maybe DEC could assist with permitting, because you'd be in the wetland buffer of DEC for trail creation, so that's something we can look forward to. But if the board wants to grant this fishing access easement, they need motion saying that this could be something that it's all on your maps here. It's in the green area.
Has anyone been contacted from Tom Sawyer or any of them other developments?
As far as
what kind of impact it's going to have on them? Don't we have a problem with one of them right over here with a trail that was there?
Well, there's not going to be a trail. It's just a fishing access easement.
So no parking or any of that?
The parking would be Northern Pines Road at the town. Yeah.
So on our property.
And it's already public land for fishing, It's more of just grants DEC.
I don't need 50 phone calls about 10 cars being parked in front of somebody's house to go to a fishing hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That won't happen?
I have no guarantee.
Let's make sure of that before we make...
Depends on how good the fishing is.
That's right, that's right.
So they do have fishing, if you're familiar with North Road. just behind Target, there is a public parking spot.
Parking and all that,
Fishing
yeah.
access.
Is it something we could put a public parking area on property that we own?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm all
At
for
Northern
that.
Pines Road, there's a color that was replaced last year.
And you're making a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thanks, Ryan.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Request to bid surveillance cameras at Gavin Park. In the last couple months, we've had, we got a phone call, we had 40 or 50 people that were having a beer party, weren't even from the area. And 13 kids were caught with a 2-foot bong having a party. There was more vandalism there this week, John?
Yep.
So I think those cameras are very important. We've had theft there in the past, so.
Closing the gates. Have they been closing the gates also?
So I'm gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
That gate, we're gonna, as soon as John gets the signs made, that will be closed from 9 at night to 7 in the morning. Signs made, John?
Whose fire district's that? Wilton or is it Maple Avenue?
We will have keys for everybody and all that, troopers, sheriffs, and John will have the emergency phone number. He's only a couple minutes away.
Which John?
King.
You.
Or we could put your name on there if you want.
I don't think so, but I think you're closer.
I'll make a motion to put out to bid a request for surveillance cameras for the park.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Presentation for a planner. Steve, you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Lower the screen, up here.
John, you get that?
I got you.
PowerPoint share. These are some of the presentation materials.
Thank you.
So you have digital copy?
Thank you, sir.
It's up in the back of the room. I don't remember.
This one is?
Yes. I don't know. I think you can. I'm not. I just sent him, Ryan. It's not a problem.
Is that thing on?
Did you hit the power button? It'll take a second.
It used to be a mess.
All right, well, just as long as it doesn't come on while the naked pictures of me at the beach are we get stronger, how do we get it a little more,
It's coming.
It's gone. Just needs to warm
give
up.
it some time to warm up? So, introduce myself, I'm Steve Bederian, I live on Woodlands Drive here in Wilton. I've been in town 20 years, and my other 50 years I've lived up north. I'd like to make a pitch for the town on alternate transportation. There's been some past planning efforts to provide alternate transportation in the town. The most recent was an ad hoc committee formed in January in response to a petition brought by families in the Lafayette Estates area to go with a trail which would lead from the Lafayette Estates to Gavin Park. This is a fairly common request to have trails which are safe to be used by children and unskilled bicyclists, the aged, the infirm, pedestrians, that interconnect between usage areas. And I would suggest, and I would encourage that we look at using Gavin Park as the hub of a network of these low-stress network of trails. Prior other efforts were the Centennial Trail Plan to connect the Wilton Wellmouth area to Gavin Park, the Saratoga County Waterline Trail, which went from the Moreau Line to Daniels Road, which was unsuccessful, and the Wilton Comprehensive Plan with an update of 2015, and I believe there's an update that's currently in process. So this is from the 2015 documents. We can see that there were good intents, and the partners involved were all of the town offices, including the planning department. I understand that we now incorporate the planning into the engineering office, if that's correct. Is that so, Ryan? And but what I'm going to suggest, and now here are a list of the town trails from the town's trails map, which was updated this year, and we can be quite proud that there's over 136 miles of trail within the town. These are recreational trails that are typically not interconnected, or if they are interconnected, it would require someone with significant road skills. Certainly not a grandparent, child, or stroller. So here we are. This is where we are. The state of New York says that you can have bicycles on any road in New York unless it's prohibited, like the North Line. The guiding principles for development that came from these was to encourage using low-stress networks to interconnect neighborhoods, schools, government buildings, retail clusters, and employment centers. Thinking of the retail cluster at exit 15, government centers, the voting poll center at Gavin Park, and of course various developments through town. So again, stressing low-stress networks. Designated bike routes could be encouraged. And this is to encourage and direct people who use bicycles to use a more safe route through town. And these, again, are required, in order to designate these, it requires a resolution from the town board to so designate. These routes then are identified on the highways in which they're used. After a resolution, the identifiers to use a shared highway would be typically either a shared use sign. Now, I have lived here, again, 20 years. I see maybe 4 of these signs in town. Do we have any more? I'm unaware that there's a proliferation, but these would mark a designated bicycle route.
The other thing, on a low speed, like in a neighborhood or a quiet road, would use a road marking called sharrows, which is a indication of a bicycle with direction arrows. And again, these are help a driver to be aware that this road is being shared, so that they would exercise greater caution in you looking out for folks that are using these roads. Now, road crossings for higher use, higher speed, like connector roads, like Edie Road, or Route 9 at the Maple Street School. You would use either a flashing signal for a collector road with limits, or in a high-speed highway, a light-controlled crossing. Now, this one here, like that demonstrated here, I took photos of at the Saratoga Spa trail crossing there. So these are used. So what do we need? We need a town committee to identify and designated bike routes. And I would suggest that the existing Jones Road Bicycle Committee be expanded, and their purview be expanded to include presenting a list of these proposed routes to the board. Then, of course, resolution would need to be made. I would also suggest that we prioritize the low-stress trial routes. These are the ones that we would put out there so that folks could see the value of these. A bicycle route improves the value of a person's property. The property values go up when you are adjacent to a bicycle route. The sales time for your property goes down. So these are all benefits of having this kind of infrastructure in town. And then look at engaging a bicycle project planner. Now, I know that we've got a lot of things on our plate, but there are experts out here that can do bicycle planning specifically. Where there's actually a gal on Daniels Road that has been used by Saratoga Plan to do the graphite trails. So this gal has also been engaged to do rail-adjacent trails in the county of Wyoming here in New York. So from the planner, you get the cost for this alternate transportation, and then you can identify the cost funding sources, and this way you can include them in a budget proposal. So here I'm asking to spend some money. Budget proposal, again, would be for the October proposal, and the scheduled construction would be then for spring construction season of the demo project for spring of 2024. That's what I'm hoping for. Here's some examples. Now, these are my suggestions. These are not obligations. But a Northwest connector, which is a connector from the Jody Lane, which is here, used a crossing of Jones Road, and then there's an existing informal trail which goes from that point at that crossing and enters Gavin Park here at the backside of the soccer on the cinder path that surrounds Gavin Park. This is an existing trail. It crosses the city of Saratoga watershed property, so there would be a negotiation there, of course. I would propose that we would use a signage and a 5-inch chain link security to provide the needed security to keep curious out of the waterworks. The other suggestion is a northeast connector. This is a connector that would bring the proposed multi-use path here from Forest Road. And there is a multi-use path from Forest Road which comes up to Bullard Lane. Now, multi-use path is not a mountain bike trail. It's a multi-use, so it's intended for people of less athletic activity. So, and again, Bullard Lane is a quiet road, low speed, low traffic usage. And Scout Road, again, it has a little more traffic usage, but it's not a raceway or a connector to any place other than the Saratoga Wildlife Area. The Wilton Wildlife Area. So those two quiet roads that would benefit from the use of the lane markings and the road signs. I would propose, though, that we look at a corridor to the west side of Edie Road from Bullard Lane up to the intersection with Scout Road. If you look along that road, there is only one property here which may be encroached, but again, the presence of a bicycle lane improves property values. And then that corridor then, it could be considered, of course, to be pressed on to exit 16 at Ballard Road to interconnect that portion of town. But that brings the Wilton Wildlife Center back all the way down to excuse me, I'm stuttering, back down to the Forest Grove development. This is then the southwest connector that I would propose. Southwest would interconnect Southwest Wilton to Gavin Park. That's on the west side of Jones Road. Now, the west side of Jones Road has a few homes, but you'll see a couple of those homes have children warning signs out in front of them already. So there's a homes that would be amenable to this kind of an infrastructure addition. So that here is Bradford Drive, which comes out from Lockbury Lake Road, Lockbury Estates, and so coming up past, there's the railroad overpass, and then there's Lewis Drive, which enters into Gavin Park. Both of these intersections, the intersection here and the intersection here, I propose again a warning for pedestrian bicycle crossing. And at this portion here, I would suggest a yellow flashing light and reduced speed limit on the underpass. Now, part of the Canadian, part of the Champlain-Hudson Power Express is the construction is going to enter right behind that bridge right here. And they're going to require a red light or some traffic control to get their heavy equipment in and out of that access right behind the bridge. It's blind access. So there will already be an experience with a lighted control at that bridge. So I believe that would encourage the continued use of that should we then go forward with this bicycle path here at this location. So those are the three that I would suggest would be most useful for us to consider. Now, I've got three more here that I'm going to put up here. And this is a situation where our town has been cleaved in half for 65 years by the Northway. It has been cleaved in half for 120 years by the railroad. The only access across these are exit 15 Bridge, which is very difficult for pedestrians and bicycles, or exit 16, again, same situation, or the Jones Road bridges. So what I would propose, and this is what I'm going to suggest, is a generational opportunity. This is the Champlain-Hudson Power Express rail trail. And I would say there's an opportunity to put in an east-west connector, which will tie both halves of our town together again. Perry Road, which is on this drawing here, dead ends against the rail, and there's a private level crossing here to access farm and fields over here. There is then the opportunity to sister along with the buried utility, which is being placed on the north of that rail line, and this is a quarter mile from here to here, a quarter mile, to reconnect Gavin Park to Perry Road. And this gives you access for the paddocks of this development here. It gives you access to the Pyramid Pines, gives you access to retail and retail opportunities and retail jobs. And this would require then a gated level crossing at that bridge or at that rail to be safe. You've got to have a gate. The warns when the trains are coming and closes, so it refuses people access when the train is coming through. So this is the bridge itself. The information came to me from the bridge maintenance folks down at exit 15 that the span was adequate for a double track. Since they're giving over the right-of-way to the utility, they're never going to install a double track. That leaves this extra distance of 13 feet between the abutment and the isolation barrier, a 5-foot chain link fence. Again, this is the Empire State Trail design standards that I'm applying here. There's room underneath there to get underneath there cleanly and safely. This is a couple of photos to show you where we are. This is at the Perry Road level crossing, and I'm looking down the tracks. There's the Northway Bridge. There's a truck on top of the bridge currently. And so the tracks go underneath here, both lanes, and then they pop out right here. Now there's the rail bed. This is another shot from Gavin Park looking west. And this is, if you can make out, I've got red circles here that indicate the Vinsec Farms property line. So there's no property taking required in order to get access to Gavin Park from the space that it would be adjacent to the CP rail line. And you can just make out the I-87 bridge right here in the shadows. The other opportunity we've got then is we can extend this rail trail and begin at Putnam Lane, again, which is part of the development for Forest Grove. I'm losing my, too much talking, I'm sorry. So from Forest Grove, which means we're connected now to Wilton Wildlife Park, you can come safely to Putnam Lane and then come down this, again, underneath the Jones Road Bridge, which again, the same situation exists. There was room under that bridge for twin rail, which is not going to be developed. So we have that opportunity here. Final opportunity is to connect it to the Saratoga bicycle system. The bicycle system at the Glenn Mitchell connector, which is coming from North Broadway, coming to the Maple Street Middle School, coming down through Skidmore Woods. That abandoned road is going to be repurposed now to be a bicycle path. The money's been approved and included in by Senator Gillibrand for the Saratoga connection. So this is an opportunity for Wilton then to further extend this multi-use path from Perry Road underneath the Northway past Gavin Park. Now here at Jones Road, I would suggest that we would need to have a better control here and cross diagonally to use the south side of the CP rail. There's already an existing trail here, trail by use. And that there's also an existing trail along, which on Google Maps is called Swamp Trail, that's along Spring Run, and it comes out onto Lockbury Lake Road. Lockbury Lake Road comes up here to an intersection across from the Maple Street Middle School. Again, a lighted crossing there would be required, but not impossible to consider. So again, this is my presentation. Thank you for your time. And again, if I can be further assistance, I've got plenty of background. I've got the information from the Champlain Hudson Power Express. I've got their building plans, so we could look at what the opportunities are there. I've got the bridge plans, so that we can look at those to verify what I'm saying. And so I certainly hope that we're able to go forward with the trial. And boy, it would make a wonderful addition to our community if we could put this rail trail in and connect to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve, Councilman O'Connor has set up a committee, they're trying to work on this, and, you know, we just don't want to rush into it, but maybe you two could sit down and have a cup of coffee at Stewart's, and you can share your ideas with them.
Yeah, the one reluctance I have to jumping in is I don't undertake a project unless I know I have the time to do it justice. And right now, I'm working with 5 different not-for-profit organizations on boards and projects. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know where I would find the time to add one more project to the already very long list of things I have going on.
Well, and specifically in regard to the Champlain-Hudson ask, I mean, this is a big ask. You're dealing with the state of New York, you're dealing with the rail company, you're dealing with the utility. But again, the next item on the agenda is you guys are going to approve something for them. There's nothing wrong with saying, well, we do this for you.
Yeah.
Little help.
How about a little help for us? Now, there's other communities that are in the same situation.
Yeah.
It's now or never.
I saw a letter from, it was dated 2010 in the information at the board meeting tonight, which was from the community of Clifton Park, which we all know has these multi-use trails every place. Also, the community of Glenville is investigating using this same project to initiate multi-use rail trail. So we would not be alone, we would have partners that in this ask. It wouldn't be just Little Wilton on our own.
Have you seen bike paths go across railroad tracks?
Yes, yes I have.
You have?
Yes.
You know, I was going to say the same thing. You know, I do a lot of cycling, and I've ridden on a lot of abandoned railroad bike paths, but I've never seen one where an active railroad with Amtrak, freight trains, and all that sort of stuff still rolling down the tracks with a bicycle path next to it.
Mechanicville, the end of Usher Road.
So running parallel to the Zim Smith Trail for miles, so you could...
There's a crossing right there.
Oh, not a crossing. This would run parallel to the railroad track for miles. I've never seen one like that. I mean, there's abandoned ones, I mean, all over the Northeast.
Those would be rail trails, which would you replace the rail with trail. These are rail adjacent, and it's a common urban design because that's where you see most of your urban rail transportation. But it's not unheard of. And there is as I showed, there's a standard in the New York building that recommends that 20-foot offset, the 5-foot tall chain link fence as a security barrier to keep interlopers out. I mean, and then the curbing and the minimum trail widths. I mean, I didn't dream this up because there was just, that's all the feet.
No, I'm just saying, I've never seen it done. Yeah, I've never ridden on it, I should say. Yeah.
But I don't think we've ever seen this wire run down the side of a railroad track either, so.
True.
Well, it's a buried utility. It will be underground, DC, so it won't be like, you won't get a shock from using your metal bicycle over the top of it. I think it's a generational opportunity. So we could affect how the entire town is viewed with this. Again,
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Steve.
Champlain Hudson Power Express easements. Ryan.
Do you want?
Pardon?
I was going to ask if you want me to talk on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So last week, Mike Monroe, Ryan, and myself did a site visit at, well, it was supposed to be 3 different locations. After the second one got a little deep, we didn't even go to the third one. So the crossing over on Scout Road, where they're looking for easements because they have to come down off that track, across the road and back up. Same thing with Jones Road behind Vincent Farm. Mike knows about some drainage things that are going on over there that they weren't aware of. So that conversation got a little deeper than I think they're anticipating. And then we didn't even go over to Gavin Park, which is where they want to do their staging in that back parking lot. I don't think it, just informational today, certainly. I don't think we're close to
agreeing on any easement language. I know Mark's letter also had some questions regarding the language as well. Some of the timing they're talking about was starting to clear in October. Mike can probably talk more about how they're going to patch the roads for the winter months. But one of our biggest concerns was the backside of Gavin Park. They wanted to clear to the rail on that back trail in October, and they wouldn't even be operating in there until August of '24. And we said, no way, because that's way too much access for kids in the park to get to there. We're not even sure how big the clearing was going to be, the kind of, you know, the noise barrier. You can hear the train coming, but you don't see it. It's not enticing. To Ray's point about the bike path running by the trail, we talked about that with the folks from Champlain Hudson. She's local, the lady I was talking to, and they certainly put the cart before the horse in a lot of things. So our instincts were right on about that. But they will have flaggers, 3 of them, a few miles apart, and they have to clear the rail 30 minutes before a train comes. So I would hesitate that a trail alongside the tracks would be something that CP Rail would go for. Mike has gotten no cooperation from CP Rail when it comes to the drainage on Jones Road at the tracks and where the drainage goes and goes under Vincent Farm. He kind of got in his truck and drove away. So again, I think the site visit turned out to be more questions than actual answers. They were great. I think they're good. They were receptive to everything Mike had to say, the questions with regard to the road and the patching and everything. You know, Ryan's questions when it comes to the engineering stuff, and, you know, I don't know anything about either of those things, but I do, you know, we live here and want to see this when it's done and that it's done right.
Mike, did you mention that Jones Road overpass, if they'd fix that? What they say?
Very limited.
Yeah, I think we'd better have another meeting to give them a list and come up with a list, and this is what we want.
Rerouting that power from the original plan, there's some issues that were addressed there.
They were going to avoid the drainage. So it's 2 different companies. CP Rail is the rail line over.
Right.
And Champlain Hudson is just the contractor going through.
Right.
So they're saying, you know, the conversation was, they saw the drainage, saw the issues, and like, well, we're going to just have to go further out and around. So they are avoiding that drainage issue, and that's a CP Rail issue. And they would have to push CP Rail to make those repairs, which is just another thing for them to delay them. So they're trying to avoid it, in my opinion.
Right.
The other thing we learned, which I think is super important for our residents, if anybody has property along the rail, is when they come through to get the easements or even to purchase your property, you get 3 options, and then they go eminent domain. And I don't think, you know, if people are talking and negotiating for their property with that rail coming through, I think they need to be aware that they, you know, it's a limited opportunity to kind of take what they offer. But I don't even know how to assess what a fair offer would be. So they want to negotiate, and it's almost if they negotiate too far, they're just,
See, I think
they have the power of the state to just take the property and you get nothing.
They're offering
No, you don't get nothing, you get fair market value.
Or fair market value.
According to court-filed appraisals.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we were offered a sum of money to allow them to park but nothing was being turned over to them. So I'm not sure what the heck these other things are.
There's temporary and permanent easements up and down. So again, I don't think we're there yet for what we want to allow or the timing, especially if they want to utilize Gavin Park. Do we want it? Mike talked to him about coming in on that Perry Road access, but that would put them on the wrong side of the tracks. But we have concerns about Gavin Park and timing with summer camp and everything else. It's a large portion of that back area.
Sounds like we need more meetings with them.
Yeah. I did find it interesting though, one little fact. That line that will go under Lake Champlain is 26 miles continuous of that pipe.
Yep.
They will pull it through one end and feed it through the other. 26 miles of continuous line. My mind was blown. I was like, how do you even
That's a big
what do you even do?
Yeah.
They had to build special barges and everything just to line them up and move them on down.
Bring it up St. Lawrence Seaway.
So spending a couple $100,000 town of Wilton would be nothing then.
Yeah.
Drop in the bucket.
Right.
We're gonna keep working on it.
All right. Speed limit reduction request for Jones Road. I think what we should do myself from Carr Road to Route 50, going through the school, which is 25, you got the trailer park there, we should ask for 25 miles an hour.
I'm gonna get a lot of tickets.
Gotta look out the safety of people there too.
It's gonna be 30.
He's gonna send it to them for evaluation.
What?
You have to
Send it for evaluation.
So we send it, they reject it.
Right, they're gonna reject it.
We just throw the sign up and ask for forgiveness.
Yep.
Didn't we already try to do that on the other side of it?
That quarter-mile stretch is 45 miles per hour between Dorothy Nolan and the traffic circle? Okay.
Yeah, once you hit the sign.
Okay.
Myself, I'd like to see it 25 from Carr Road east to Route 50.
25.
Carr Road to 50, 25 miles an hour.
Probably only go, maybe it would get to 30.
It's halfway.
They changed that. Did they change that? We had a thing where it could go to 25 miles.
No, they changed it. And whoever got a ticket did some research that it was actually never formally changed and he was correct, and that's when the signs had to go back.
The state.
That's when the
is
signs had to go
reduced.
back.
Hasn't patched yet.
All right.
So, Carr Road.
Is it negotiable, this 25?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm thinking
I'm on that
30.
road a lot.
30 then.
I think 30,
45.
we got a shot.
All right.
30.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion 30.
A second? Second. In favor? Aye.
15
Well, it's not, we're not asking for the speed, we're asking for reductions.
Right, right.
I'm thinking 15 miles over the speed, that's like 9 points. And it's,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I can walk to work, I'm like,
Town Hall expansion feasibility study. Ryan?
Okay, in your packet, there's information. Consultant provided the feasibility study based on the new proposed addition to Town Hall, which would be located in this area here. Have it in front of you. It would basically square off Town Hall, center courtyard. If anybody has any questions on that, they also sent a proposal. We get 2 packets in front of you. The next steps would be creating the design plans. And I guess the question for the board is, would you like to move forward with the design of this addition?
Would MJ do that work as well, or do we put that up to bid?
No, the design will be MJ.
I missed it. Did they give us a number on the design?
On the smaller packet.
159.9. Page 405 at the bottom.
Okay, gotcha.
Which one? Page 5?
Page 405 on the bottom.
This one.
There's 2 separate packets.
And this was what we were talking about with ARPA funding?
Yes, that was discussed last meeting, the funding source. I think some ARPA funds would be utilized.
Somebody want to make a motion?
We need a motion or, yeah?
It's just
Go ahead with it.
You talking about the MJ contract?
I think it's just informational.
Right, I didn't know if you're taking
Well,
action.
I thought you want to get it.
Well, I want to get moving on it, for sure.
Right, you'll need a motion if you want to move forward and accept the proposal.
Right.
For a project of this scale, does this seem like a reasonable sum based on your experience?
The design fee?
Yeah.
Seems a little high for me, but there is a vault, the extension of the existing vault in the basement, so that's a little different. There's a full basement design as well. tying into an existing structure is sometimes complicated. And there is a sewer connection as well.
So it's a little more, it's broader and a bit more complex than typical.
Standard design.
Because I thought it seemed a little high too.
Yeah.
But now that you mention all of that, yeah, I'll make a motion to move ahead with MJ Design for an amount not to exceed $159,900. Beat them up for something less.
Got a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Committee reports. Anybody got anything?
Two quick ones. Let's see, I was talking with some folks involved with the new graphite range that's off of Route 9, and still hoping to get that open in the fall. Parking, kiosk, and access for both hikers and mountain bikers to the trails and to the old lines. And I also brought something for show and tell. I don't know why it took me so long, but this is the patch you get for doing the Great 8. There are 8 different properties associated with the Wilton Wildlife Preserve. And if you hike all 8 properties, you get a nice patch to put on your pack. That's cool. I also brought this because I thought the meeting was going to go long and I got a sleeping bag in here. So I just encourage everybody, if you haven't spent any time out on these properties in and adjacent to the Wilton Wildlife Preserve, it's just a whole lot of fun. Last weekend, 2 friends and I went out and we hit all 8 of them in the same day.
Entire patch for that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's an ultra.
Can you
Do you get another one if you do it at night or in the winter?
Yeah.
Winter patch?
How many miles that day?
Oh, gosh.
Is it wide enough for a golf cart?
He's around 16.
Ah, that doesn't count.
16?
Not 16 altogether.
Gotta get your
Yeah.
steps in.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was an ultra.
Hey, Mike, I was down Davison Drive. You've done one heck of a job down there. Man, I was impressed with how you hooked up the driveways, you and your crews in the mailboxes. Yeah. For all you, remind you, starting next Thursday, that'd be the 10th, 17th, 24th, 31st, we're gonna have those bands at Gavin Park from 7 to 9, so bring your lawn chairs and your dancing shoes.
Can we put up, is it possible to put like a highway sign up?
Yeah.
One of the signs, just
Yeah,
live
I'm
music
gonna get this sign done too,
dates,
so.
yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah. The generators are here in case there is a power failure for our traffic lights. We're working on a policy right now. I hope by next month we'll have them working. I talked about Jeannie Walters. I'd like to, and this Historical Society would want it too. We'd like to maybe buy a bench in her memory and put it up to Heritage Society. Maybe $500, $700, I don't know, but she did a lot for this town. So, you in favor of that?
Yes. I'll make a motion, we put aside money, put a bench in Jeannie's name.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Anybody got anything else to bring up? Controller's report. Maria?
Thank you, Supervisor. So the first category we have is our budget transfers, and both items under that category relate to personnel salaries. So the first item is for our buildings. Our buildings department had originally budgeted for 3 full-time positions, but insofar as we've had a difficult time finding personnel, we have not found that third item. We did find a part-timer, so we are just reallocating monies from our full-time position to the part-time line. And this is the value of the part-time position from now until the end of the year. The second item is for parks. What happened there is that we've had some unexpected vacancies, and because of the always busy park with the various activities that happen, personnel have to be there to do the work that has to get done. So the full-timers that were there are working double shifts. They are working a lot of overtime. So this budget transfer will take some money from our full-time parks salaries, which are underutilized because of the vacancies and reallocated to the overtime line, which is being overutilized.
Make a motion to approve budget transfers 1 and 2.
Second.
I'll second.
In favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you. The second category is our 2023 budget amendments, and they both relate to insurance recoveries. In the first instance, we've had damage on our pavilion gutters, which are being replaced. The damage, I believe, was related to snow melting and collapsing the gutters. So we placed an insurance claim on that. We received the insurance claim, and we're moving forward with the purchase pending the board approval. The second item is also insurance recoveries. We received a check for damage that was sustained to our snowplow, which was totaled last March, and we would like to move forward with replacing that snowplow using that insurance money.
So they want to make a motion on the budget amendments?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Whatever you want, Sue. Whatever.
Take your choice.
The third item is we have asset disposition. Mike Monroe, our highway superintendent, is requesting to sell miscellaneous items on Auctions International. The items include various tires, a bandsaw, and a riding mower.
I'll make a motion to dispose of those assets through the auction.
Second.
In favor? Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you. The fourth and last category is personnel. The first item under personnel is Sue Baldwin, our town clerk, is requesting to attend the summer regional meeting of the New York State Town Clerks Association in Cheektowaga, New York. Chautauqua, New York. That's my downstate pronunciation. From September 17th through the 18th. The session requires overnight travel, and therefore board approval is required.
You got a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second?
Second.
In favor? Opposed, carried.
Thank you. The second item under personnel is John King, our park maintenance supervisor, is requesting to hire Kyle Elliott to fill the maintenance worker position that was vacated by Charles Wolf at the step 2 rate of $18.54.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Mr. Elliott.
And second?
Second.
Aaron, yeah.
Sorry.
In favor?
I jumped early.
I recuse on that one.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, you
Is your
recused?
real name Carl Elliott?
No.
Is that what?
Might be the guy who put
Sam.
money on the car race.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you. The third item under personnel is our highway MEO, Tom Hammond, has submitted his letter of resignation, which will be effective August 29th, and the board is requested to accept Mr. Hammond's resignation.
I will make a motion to approve his resignation, or accept his resignation, I should say.
Second.
Second? Aaron. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you. And finally, our last item under personnel is Highway Superintendent Mike Monroe is requesting to fill the vacant MEO position that we just discussed for Tom Hammond with Patrick Baldwin. If approved, Mr. Baldwin will be hired at the step 1 rate of $23.63 an hour. Mr. Baldwin possesses a Class A CDL, experience with heavy equipment and welding.
And a great work ethic.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Like the volleyball game one time.
We want to make a motion, adjourn the meeting?
Motion adjourned.
Second. Opposed, carried.
You're getting out of there faster than the horses you were watching today.